Hey, folks, welcome to InTheMoneyStocks.com's intraday analysis video, brought to you by the creators of proprietary price, pattern, and time methodology. Learn the PPT strategies and profit for life. Let's get started on this Friday, August 8th, 2014. Markets are trading slightly higher on the day, although starting to pull back just a little bit. What you're looking at right now is the 10-minute chart on the SPY, which is the ETF that tracks the S&P 500. So essentially, this is the S&P 500. It opened slightly higher today, saw a minor sell-off into gap fill, which was the close from yesterday right here. You can see it hit it once, bounced, hit it twice, bounced, 3-4 times, and bounced every time. It couldn't break through. Which way is the path of least resistance when you hammer on a door and you can't get through that door? You're going to go the opposite way. You're going to find another direction. And ultimately, that was this direction to the upside. And look at where the markets topped out today. Pivot high right here from yesterday turns out to be the pivot high today. And same thing, path of least resistance, right? Hammers, 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 hammers. Every candle for about 5-6 candles here. And it couldn't break higher, couldn't get to the 200 moving average. So the path of least resistance is to pull back. Now you're coming into the 50 and the 20 moving average. Okay, and again, we're talking about the 10-minute intraday chart right now. Right now, the S&P 500 up 7 points, Dow up 62, NASDAQ up about 9 points. Markets, again, getting a small uptick here as we speak. I do have some things I'm looking at, which I will reveal to you guys shortly, but let's get into a couple other things. One thing catching my eye today is the dollar. The UUP is having a nice pullback today. It's off its lows. So again, we're seeing a little pullback, but here's your intraday dollar. Sharp fall at the open, then a bounce, and now it's starting to come back in just a tiny bit. But again, very interesting to kind of note that and see how that's trading right now. Let's flip over to the daily chart and get our bearings. So I talked to you guys about this, and I told my members here at InTheMoneyStocks.com in the Research Center this in the daily analysis video yesterday night. And again, same thing here. So here was your resistance, and you could see that the dollar was struggling here. All right, it wasn't a secret. I gave the bias to the downside, and let me just go over why. All right, because I think this is important. So you see the gap fill right here and the little pivot top right here. So this was your gap fill right here. Follow this line across. Now let me zoom in. All right, so look what happened. You hit this line and you had a 3-day minor pullback. Then you came up and you pierced the line, but you couldn't close above it. You came back and closed right below the line here. Then you gapped above it the next day, which is usually a strong signal, and yet again we saw a sell-off coming back in here, and it closed below. The next day it went even higher, made a new high, and again you put in a topping tail signal right here. So over and over again it tried to get through this area on multiple attempts with multiple different types of gaps or pushes to new highs in the short term, and it just failed every single time. Same thing as I said at the beginning of this video. Path of least resistance. Down, right? It makes sense, kind of just logical. Well, sure enough, that's what you're seeing here, and the dollar pulling back today. Now, I don't think there's a lot of downside in the dollar, but you could pull back. See this pivot high here, and this trend line, and then this 20 MA. There's a likely scenario that over the next few days into next week, you pull back into that area. All right, and again, it's my interpretation that if we have a pullback in the dollar, you actually should see the markets rally up a little bit. So I'm actually in the camp that you probably do see it's a very small minor move up, but I wouldn't be surprised if you continue that into early next week on the markets. All right, now a couple things to go over here. You have to, first of all, understand what happened last night. So last night, all right, we had some major downside after hours and overnight. The futures were down as much as 12 points on the S&P, which is like $1.20 on the SPY. All right, now, if we flip back to the SPY, take a look at this. So, essentially, I had a major level upsloping trend line here, and there's a gap fill and a bunch of trend lines. And if you look at yesterday after hours, you came right into this level here. Now, it's interesting because we didn't officially tag it during market hours, which always leaves a small chance that it does get there at some point. But right now, I'm going to go with the assumption that based on the after-hours futures tagging this area, the markets, again, that's why they're getting a bid today, and we could really float up into early next week. Okay, so again, wouldn't be surprised to see that. All right, couple things that I want to go over. If we do see a float next week, what is a good option for a trade? I mean, what's a good trade? I'll give you guys one right now. This is what I like right now, the EWG. All right, EWG for a short-term, very near-term bounce here. If you take a look right here, you have support. You have a gap window that got hit. You didn't fill the gap right here, which leaves it open to maybe a little minor downside. But I like this area, guys. I have to say, I like the opportunity here. Maybe, again, it dips quickly down to about the 2765 level. But for the most part, at some point, you're going to see a bounce on this EWG. And this is the EWG is the ETF that tracks the Germany market. All right, this tracks the DAX. And again, what I like about this is look at this fall. I mean, from this pivot high where you were at 52-week highs, you literally negated and went to 52-week lows. I mean, look at this. I mean, we're not quite 52-week lows in all fairness, but very close. But you have to go back all the way to October 2013. All right, we're in August right now, so it's really not that far away from being, 12-month lows. But nonetheless, gap window, gap fill, right in this range, I think you're going to get a bounce on this thing. And again, if the market starts to bounce, then you probably do see that bounce come in. So that's just one of those potential plays for you guys to watch if you're interested. And I actually do like it myself. So we'll see how that plays out. But that's an idea there. What else do we have out there on the radar? Some stocks that I gave out for free as trades are working out beautifully here. Rant and Rave blog earlier this week, I gave you guys this double bottom level on HLF. Pierced it beautifully, put in a little bit of a bottoming tail, and you can see the bounce here. This stock, unfortunately, well, fortunately or unfortunately, doesn't really matter. It's going to go eventually lower, but in the short term, it's bouncing, and you should see a little bit more upside. My guess is it kind of trades back to here. You can see right here these little pivot lows right in this range, which is around the 5250 level. Okay? All right, so that's what we have going on there, guys. And I'm going to continue to kind of scan through here and see what else is going on. Whole Foods, to me, is an interesting play based at the lows of the chart right now. I still like that. That looks very intriguing. Today, we are seeing bounces on a majority of stocks. One stock, actually, housing stocks are having a good bounce, and that warrants a little attention because they've been being beaten down. Here's Toll Brothers up about 1.7%. And Home Depot really having a nice bounce today, up $1.28. So very nice move on Home Depot HD today. All right. What else do we have? Anything else on the radar here? Let me just scan through. I don't see much else on the radar. Let's go back to the SPY here. We'll talk about gold and oil briefly as well. And let's go back to the intraday charts on these. And you can see again the the SPY is slowly fading. So now this is actually big because these two moving averages are support on the SPY. And as long as you hold that support area, this market could bounce back up. If you start getting below this on a closing basis here on the intraday, you're very likely going to go back to this low and potentially the lows from yesterday. And remember, the after-hour lows were even lower than this. So this is actually a really, really big, I stress big level on the SPY. So monitor that very closely here, guys. And again, if it can hold, look for the highs of the day or maybe even the 200 MA by the close. If you see, the one little tricky thing here is I could see people not wanting to hold into the weekend, in which case they might sell into the end of the day. So you might see again as we get towards the 3 o'clock time frame, potentially a sell-off just because people just don't want to hold. But I actually still think I'm still in the camp that I still think we have a decent chance of bouncing over the next few days into early next week, and then before that we'll have another big. No, I should say following a little bounce up here potentially, and I think you have big downside coming by mid to late next week again. Okay. All right, so that's what we have going on there, guys. Oil, let's take a look at the USO today. USO is trading down another dime here. Intraday bearish pattern, although the commodity will be closing soon, so it may not have enough time to play out that pattern. But again, if you go to the daily chart of the USO, it continues to be extremely weak. It's really had a small bounce off this level, but the more it goes sideways, the more likely it breaks down, so be aware of that. And gold, which has had a big move the last 2 days, is flat today on the day, so just taking a pause day today. Not much else going on in that realm. A couple other commodities that I want to take a look at here today. JJC, which is copper. Copper's flat on the day. Actually, copper's starting to make a bearish pattern here. We should keep an eye on this for a potential short in the coming, probably by mid next week. If it continues to go sideways, you could have a short on the JJC. How's coffee doing, JO? Ooh, JO, nice pullback. Good pullback from a big move up. And that came right into the 20 MA, and gap filled the gap over the last couple days as well. So some interesting things going on here, guys. But again, let's see what the market brings us later on. Always come here to InTheMoneyStocks.com. We have open arms. We'll teach you the methodology. We'll teach you the proprietary techniques, and ultimately you make money. This year we're up about 350% net gain. Even if you just put 10% of your portfolio in each play, you'd be up 35% on the year. Right now the markets are trading basically flat for the year. So think about that, guys. And again, the beauty of this is when the market was going up, we made money. When the market's going down, we make money. It's because the methodology, the proprietary methodology, scores big for us. All right, guys, take care. Thanks again for watching. Come join us here at InTheMoneyStocks.com. Take the 7-day free trial.